Where did the idea come from? And was this the time when outsourcing was still, had already become an idea? Was it an idea that you had?
So we started as what's called an IT staffing company, which is sort of at the lowest end of the food chain in the whole outsourcing area. And so that was the start we made. So we would provide either staff for companies that wanted to build some kind of software, or over time we moved into building solutions, and then from there we moved into outsourcing. So it was a journey.
So let me ask you, in the same spirit, a series of rapid-fire questions now about your time at Syntel. So what motivated you, money or power?
Money.
What helped, good luck or good decisions?
Good decisions.
Do you think of yourself as someone who was seizing opportunity or creating opportunity?
Creating opportunity.
Who do you admire more, Bill Gates or Warren Buffett?
Warren Buffett.
Do you think of yourself as being attached to Wall Street or Main Street?
Main Street.
Are you in the 1% or the 99%?
1%.
Michael Porter or Clay Christensen?
Michael Porter.
IBM or HP?
Actually neither, but forced me to pick IBM.
US or Indian IT outsourcing companies?
Indian IT outsourcing companies.
TCS, Infosys or Wipro?
TCS.
Mac or PC?
Mac.
Choosing the right people or choosing the right projects?
Choosing the right people.
Trusting your gut or trusting your analysis?
Trusting your gut.
Tough-minded or soft-hearted?
Tough-minded.
First mover or fast follower?
First mover.
Products or services?
Services.
What's the better motivator, money or praise?
Praise.
Who's harder to fire, a high performer with poor values or a low performer with high values?
High performer with poor values.
What's more important, getting a new client or getting more out of an existing client?
Getting more out of an existing client.
Respecting your competition or destroying your competition?
Respecting your competition.
Who deserves more jail time, Ramalinga Raju or Bernie Madoff?
Both. If I were to say, probably Madoff. Yeah.
What gave you more satisfaction, making your first million or giving away your first million?
Giving away my first million.
Okay. So, as you think about the Syntel, the evolution of Syntel, is there a moment that you can recall where you say, this was the moment that made the difference between us being yet another startup versus us becoming a company that could become an IPO? You know, there's so many companies that start but never actually make it. Was there a moment that you can think of in the evolution of Syntel that you said, this made the difference?
I think there was. So to lay the context, when we started, we were in the IT staffing business, and I remember when we started, somebody asked me, there are 100 IT staffing companies just in Detroit. You know, we don't need one more. So why are you in this business? And so we somehow, you know, stumbled through. And one of the things that a CEO and entrepreneur has always got to do is figure out what's his edge and how does he leapfrog the competition to seize opportunities. So that was something that was sort of constantly going through my mind. And I visited India from time to time. So we started in the US and had almost no connection with India till '92. At that time, as I saw an emerging, you know, intelligent, committed workforce with companies like the Tatas, I said, you know, it might make sense for us to try to do some remote development. We'd be able to drive a great value proposition to customers because it would be much lower cost. And on larger projects, we'd actually be able to manage our risk better, because to move up the food chain, you have to take on more risk. And you know, we could screw up and not go out of business. So that was an important motivator. And we said, you know, this thing about remote development is coming up. So I know Nandan quite well. And Nandan and I talked about remote development in the early 80s. the technology was just not there at that time. So in '92, when a link actually became available to India, we said, you know, this is something we have to try. And if this works, we can at least get to the next level in our evolution and provide some great service to our clients. So we got this satellite connection. At that time, it was a 9.6K bandwidth connection between US and India. It cost us $500,000. And you know, that was an important decision because that would have represented the profits of the company in that year. So we said, you know, this is something we not only have to do, but we have to make it work. Now, to make it work, we had to then figure out how to tap that bandwidth. 9.6 is not a lot, as we know. And so what we did was we actually hung 30 PCs in what's called terminal emulation mode at the other end. So the PCs could process smartly, but they were only using a little bit of bandwidth as needed on time, in time slices. And then we ran 2 and sometimes 3 shifts. A, to make the economic model viable, and B, to kind of prove it. And over probably about 6 to 12 months, as the thing started working, we got more confident. But I can tell you, there were definitely moments where that whole thing could have been, you know, hung on the balance. I remember clearly our first client was a very well-known, to try this, a very well-known insurance company, a very entrepreneurial company, didn't mind taking risks. So they said, we got this project, you know, this is my budget, can you do it? Without knowing anything about it, we said, we'll do it. We took it on, and they had a delivery deadline. So I would go every Friday from Troy to New Jersey, where their CIO was, and he'd say, when is the line coming up? And I'm like, any day now, any day. I once got a phone call.
Good Indian answer, you know, any day now, always.
We're working on it, we're working on it. Basically, I got a call that said, if it's not up by Friday, you're done. Fortunately for us, the line came up that Friday. So, you know, I mean, these things happen.
So did it feel like this was a bet your company moment?
In some ways, I was betting on the future for sure. I think we could have survived, but we wouldn't have gone places.
Interesting. Yeah. So has there been another moment that you can think of where you would say, the smell of failure was almost greater than the smell of success? That we were so close to failing, that had we not pulled it off, you wouldn't be sitting here to have this conversation with me today.
So something kind of along those lines, and I want to share that with you. We had a strategic planning meeting in the mid-90s, so our offshore development started to work. And we needed to scale the business. And we had a strategic planning session with about 15 executives to determine our direction and make some key strategic decisions about staffing. And I remember there were about, there were Nirja and I and 12 executives who were all US-based people from companies like Oracle, IBM, EDS. And there was this one guy who headed our India center. And everybody from, the 12 people wanted to go one way. And this guy, who was our India head, wanted to go the other direction. He was convinced about his view. He just couldn't convince the others. And by default, we ended up going the way the 12 people wanted. Over time, it quickly dawned on me that the instinct and wisdom that our India head had was right on. And
what gave you the clue? Because it's so easy to dismiss the lone minority view when you have 12 people who seem like
and
masters of the universe on one side and this poor guy from India on the other.
So first of all, I want to admit that was probably my biggest mistake, is not supporting that guy right that day, to say we're going this way, guys. And in hindsight, I think I didn't do enough analysis When you have a problem that's that big, you have to be personally involved. You have to understand the problem really well, and at the end of the day, it's going to be a gut call. But what essentially developed is the method that the other 12 people talked about didn't work. We couldn't scale, we couldn't hire the right people, and ultimately we said we're going to close this approach, we're going to go with this approach. We ended up having to change the team completely, but I can tell you if we hadn't done that, we would have been marginalized.
So what do you see as the future of Syntel now? I know that you've made one other very important transition, which is one of the hardest transitions for founders to make, which is to think about your own successor.
Right.
But as you think about the company in this next phase, what are your best hopes for Syntel going forward?
So, we've been very fortunate to have a great board that helped me through the succession, and I feel really both very pleased and in some ways very relieved that succession has taken place. And I remember at one day suddenly being burdened, saying it would be irresponsible of me not to have a really strong succession plan, because if something were to happen to me, it would impact thousands of lives. We're in an industry that is changing dramatically. So far, technology was used much more by businesses. Today, technology is in almost every hands. So there are, Syntel has 20,000 employees, about 100 great global brands as clients. I think the things that excite me most are the potential of the cloud, the potential of mobility, and potential of social media. Every single client of us is impacted by these technologies, and how they can capture market share and how we help them do that, to me, is very exciting.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about things outside of your business. I mean, you've clearly built an extraordinary company, but I know that there have been many other things in your life as well. You have 2 wonderful kids. We're happy that one of them is already at Harvard Business School. The next one will join us next year. Great wife. You have a foundation. You have all these other interests. So let me just again try and get a feel for your interest by this yet another round of rapid fire questions, and then maybe you can describe yourself what your interests are. So cricket or baseball?
Cricket.
That was an easy layup. Test cricket or one day?
Test.
And this next one's not even count. One day or 2020?
One day.
So if you were India captain, who would you rather win against? England, West Indies, or Australia?
Australia.
Australia or Pakistan?
Pakistan. Another layup.
Bollywood or Hollywood?
Bollywood.
Amitabh Bachchan or Shah Rukh Khan?
Amitabh.
Amitabh Bachchan or Brad Pitt?
Amitabh.
Mundi Madabhui or Sheila Ki Jawani?
I don't know either, I'm sorry.
You're just not with it. Meena Kumari or Aishwarya Rai?
Aishwarya Rai.
Aishwarya Rai or Angelina Jolie?
Aishwarya Rai.
Rakhi Sawant or Malika Sherawat?
Malika Sherawat.
Poker or bridge?
Bridge.
Bluffing or winning?
Bluffing.
Soccer or American football?
Soccer.
Romney or Santoro?
Romney.
Obama or Romney?
Romney.
Who's more crazy? Martin Sheen or Muammar Gaddafi?
Muammar Gaddafi. The late.
What would you rather be on? Coffee with Karan or chai with Nitin?
Chai with Nitin.